Hello. Hello everyone who's joined us today. Hey look, I hope you enjoyed my truly epic intro video that I've started using. If you're new here, you might be like, whoa, who is this person? My name is Ruth Power and I am the founder of Piano Picnic, which is an online piano school where you can learn to play like a creative pianist, where you can learn to be a creative pianist and you learn all of those skills that you don't learn in the traditional method of learning piano. And you don't learn them with your general song tutorials on YouTube either. So I'm coming at you today on YouTube. It's something a little bit different. Normally I'm over on Facebook and we do this around kind of roughly weekly, but sometimes not weekly. But most weeks I'm doing a live stream, a conversation, something to do with the pianist journey, because I think the more we can share, the more you know about what to expect in your piano journey, the easier it's going to be, right? So welcome to Val, who's put a comment in. Thank you for commenting. She says, recognize the yoga track that I just put up. I thought, should have some music playing in the intro, right? Rather than just silence. And that was the first song I found on my computer. So that's a track from the Yoga for Pianists course, which is a course that I have available in the Piano Picnic School. And also you get to not only do yoga, especially for pianist bodies, to original music, like that one there and some other cool songs as well. The soundtrack, you also get to learn how to play those songs, or at least in that style, called meditative piano playing. So it's all one holistic piano experience around here. So hi to Marsha, thank you for joining. She says, great intro, thank you so much. And thank you so much. I love that. I love a little bit of epicness, you may have noticed around, so it's definitely true to my vibe. So today we are talking about the topic of plagiarism and pastiche, right? Val said she had to look up the word. I love the word pastiche. I think it's a really cool word. I just think it's fun to say. Basically, I haven't looked up the definition in a while, but I'm going to paraphrase here. Basically, it's when you create a work and it's an homage to another artist. And there's ways of doing that without being plagiarizing, right? And today we're going to talk about this topic of music copyright. Where are we infringing? Where are we not? I do want to make sure that I'm putting up a little disclaimer here. Where is my thingammy-jingamy? So just to say right off the bat, this video, I'm giving some general advice for songwriters and references specific to music copyright law in New Zealand. This is not a replacement for legal advice. If you find this video on YouTube, please know that I'm paraphrasing copyright law specifically for my students who are currently learning how to write songs. And if you require legal advice, you need to go get the official consultation of a professional lawyer. But today I'm going to be talking, I've done a little bit of research in terms of, actual copyright law, but I am no lawyer. So I'm going to be sharing my take on it, where I sort of think about it in terms of in the songwriting process. Because what we don't want to be doing is just copying the things out of our subconscious mind that are actually from another song, because the main reason we don't want to do that as home songwriters, as hobbyist songwriters, obviously we're not releasing songs, so we're not really scared about, or unless you do want to release a song, of course, but at this stage of just learning how to do it, we're probably not going to be sued by a publishing company or record label at this early stage before you've commercially released something. But we also don't want to be copying other people's work, copying other people's answers, because essentially it means that we are not trying to create something new ourselves. And of course, if we're learning the skill of songwriting, we want to be honing those skills in creating and developing and crafting all the elements of a song, and not just copying something that we vaguely remember. So, of course, we are influenced by other musicians throughout our lifetime, and so it's natural that we will imitate or pastiche other artists while we're getting started. And certainly, I was told this on day one when I studied songwriting in my music degree, was that you have to imitate before you innovate. So I want to start by just making sure that we're understanding that imitating musicians or pastiche to our favorite musicians that we're very influenced by, being extremely influenced by their style of writing, the things they tend to do, that is totally fine, and in fact it's expected. You cannot be expected to innovate and create something wholly original straight away. So this is to say that if you're writing new songs, you are probably going to take snippets, whether knowingly or unknowingly, from the music you love, because it has influenced you, and that's totally fine. But where does being inspired by turn into plagiarism or a copyright infringement? We're going to have a little bit of a look at that today, just so we have an overview. So you guys who are watching now or in the replay as well, let me know in the comments if you've had this situation. So you've started writing a song, you've got some chords together, and then suddenly you're playing through a chord progression and this melody just pops into your head, right? And you're singing it and you think, oh my gosh, this is great. I just came up with that just like straight away. This is so good. Finally, I'm writing one of those songs that, isn't going to take me hours and hours. I'm getting one of those great songs that just pops into my head and is super easy to write. Because we know those songs do happen for some skilled songwriters. So you're sitting with the melody, you're going over it, you're sort of thinking over it, what words am I going to put with it? After a little while you think, this kind of sounds a little bit familiar, but you don't think too much of it, you keep going, writing the song. Then after a few days, the melody is still stuck in your head and you're thinking, why is this so catchy? It's such an earworm and it's in my head. I've written a really good melody here. But you start to think, did I write it? Or is it just something that was in my head because of something I'd listened to previously? So your subconscious mind has a way of pulling things that you've heard before, whether you realize it or not. And that's the tricky part, is how do we know if something we have written is in fact something from our memory that we're borrowing? For instance, quite often this situation will happen. So I do want to know in the comments if you've had this happen before. Quite often this situation will happen when we play what's known as a common chord progression, right? The 1-4-5 or the 1-6 minor 4-5, anything like that. Because those chords have been used so often, and depending on what type of music we listen to all the time, there will be some songs that we know very well that have been written with that chord progression. So it's kind of difficult to play those chords without thinking of a song that you already know. So that's when the song pops into your head, lyrics, melody, you know, oh yeah, that's such and such a song, because it reminds you of that. That's when you consciously remember a song. But when we're creating a melody from scratch and it doesn't really come up in the form of with all the with all the lyrics and everything fully formed, and we're just sort of remembering a bit of a melody, but we don't realize we're remembering it because it's all sort of hidden in the back of recesses of your memory in your subconscious. That's when we start to get a little bit tricky. So your mind is able to draw parallels between the harmony that you might be playing in the common chord progression and the harmony of a song that you've heard before, even without you necessarily knowing what chords they are, what chord progression it is, how to play it on the piano. Your ear can just, is incredible that way. Your ear can just make the association based on how it makes you feel or something about it that's triggering that memory. So how do we know if we have written something ourselves or our subconscious mind is dragging up something from our memories? Because we want to know whether we've borrowed something or not. Because if we have borrowed something, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but we will probably need to tweak it in order to make sure that it's not an exact replication of something that already exists, so that we can avoid copyright law, and also so we can exercise that craftsmanship with our songwriting in order to make something our own. So that's our first question. I'm going to take a little look before I answer that question. How do we know if we've written something ourselves or if we've subconsciously borrowed it? We're going to look at the answer in a second, but I do want to check your comments. Yes, so Val's remarking that the peaceful piano course that we did revolved around taking a motif from another composer and changing or improvising with that motif. Does that count as a pastiche? It can be, yeah. I mean, it's definitely imitating in order to innovate, right? So you're taking a little bit, we called them song studies in the peaceful piano improvising course, where we studied some songs of some composers that were in that meditative sort of contemporary classical genre, and we took some sort of ideas from their chord progressions and from the riffs they used in those songs, and we expanded them out into our own improvisation. I think it depends whether it's pastiche, whether it's very recognizably that artist's song. So if you hear the motif that you've taken, if you've changed it, if you have changed it enough so that it no longer sounds like the original so much, then that's not so much of a pastiche as it is just a jumping off point and inspiration. Whereas if it really does sound like that Einaudi song, except for that it's, you know, the notes are in a slightly different order, or you've added a bit of syncopation but it's still recognizably similar, then that's more of a pastiche in my mind. Awesome. Marsha says she had this similar sort of experience when she was playing the blues, so that's cool. Yeah. So when you play the blues, obviously the blues chord progression, and we can talk about this in a second when we're talking about copyright. The a lot of copyright law hinges on the fact of being original. And of course, the blues has been around for so long that no one can really claim the blues chord progression as their own, because it's already been done so many times. So that chord progression in itself, even though it's very well known, it has its own name, no one can really copyright it. So we'll get into that in a second. So let's dig into this first question. Oh no, that's the disclaimer. So how do I know if my song is original? So if you've written something that sounds familiar, but exactly what it was from hasn't surfaced for you, then there are a few things you can do in order to find where that bit comes from, right? Now, the first thing I would recommend is to play or hum the chords and the melody, or play the chords, hum the melody to someone else. Get a second opinion. If that person and someone that has a similar music taste to you is probably a good idea, so that they've heard similar sort of songs before. Get someone else's opinion. Normally, if I've written something and I'm like, I know that's from something, I'll play it to my husband or a friend and see if I'll say, like, what do you think about this song? Try not to tell them that you wrote it or that you're thinking it's a different song, because you don't want to put words into their mouth. But just see what they think. And if they say, oh yeah, it sounds like blah blah blah, oh, it sounds like Saturday Night Fever by the Bee Gees, then you know that you've probably come too close, or that you've borrowed from that song, right? If they don't say that it specifically reminds them of something immediately, then obviously if you have borrowed it from something, then maybe it is subtle enough to not be considered plagiarism. The other idea, and something that I wanted to show you, is a melody recognition software. There are different apps you can get, but really you can just use Google Assistant. So when you go to your Google search on your computer or on your phone, I found it easier to do on my phone, and I'm going to show you right now how to do it. So I've got to pull this up so you can see my screen. Where is it? There we go. Right, I'm just going to connect my phone so that you can see it, and then I'll be able to show you exactly what to do. Now, this is a Google's right, here we go. This is Google's recognition software. So you can literally go into, so this is my Google home screen. You can go up to this microphone here in the middle on the Google widget. Click that, say, what song is this? Right? It's going to say play, sing, or hum a song. Okay, so I just sung the melody to Do You Think I'm Sexy by Rod Stewart, and you can see that it comes right up on there. It says it's a 21% match. Hopefully maybe my pitching was a little bit off, but I was just having to play with this morning, and it's so great, because if you've thought of a melody and you're not sure what it is from, you can't identify whether it's your own or whether it's from a song, you can hum it into your phone, into that Google search, to say, what song is this? Or what song is this is probably the best thing to say. And then it will show you. So if I go try again, let me think of a song. This is what I did this morning. Ba-da-da-da-dee-da-da-da-da. Ba-da-da-dee-da-da-da-da. Right? And then it brings up Be My Lover by LaBouche. So that one was a 51% match. So I think that's a bit more obvious. If it's only coming up with like a below 20% or below 10% match, then it's not similar enough to obviously be a total pastiche or plagiarizing that song. Now, this works with, it works not only with singing. You can do it, you can play it on the piano, or you can whistle it. It's a really, really clever software. I haven't tried the piano and whistling yet, but I have been reading up about it, and apparently it works. So give it a go at home. And I think it's a great way to know whether a melody you have written is in fact from another song or not. Yes, no idea. I know, I had no idea as well. I thought I was going to have to download a separate app, but lo and behold, it's right in the Google search function. So that is pretty cool, because I like not having to download different apps for everything. I have enough apps on my phone. So we've got two ways there where we can figure out whether if a melody that we have come up with is from a different song or not. So second question is, so if I have borrowed something, when is it okay and when is it really not okay from a copyright law perspective? So generally speaking, you cannot copyright a chord progression. So this is why we have common chord progressions. Imagine if someone copyrighted the 1-4-5 progression, right? We would be in a lot of trouble, and there would be a massive class action going on because so many songs include that chord progression. So though chords in specific orders can remind us of songs, they can sound like songs, even if they're in the original key, we can't really copyright a chord progression. Where it can be copyrighted is if it's like longer. So if it's the entire chord progression of an entire section of a song, or indeed the entire song. And it also comes down to also the way that it's played, the arrangement of it. So though you can't copyright harmony, so the way that the notes contribute to the harmonic functions of the specific chords that are being used, you can, what is copyrightable is the notes that are played in which order to form that chord progression. Say, for instance, if it's a broken chord, descending, and then it plays some quick syncopation, and then a trumpet comes in, or the more specifics of the actual music arrangement of a song, of that harmony, is what's copyrightable. So for instance, you could play a 1-4-5-6 minor 5-1 chord progression and steal it from a song by Elton John. But what you couldn't do is play all the specific notes he uses to play those chords in the same specific order to play those chords. That would certainly start to be copyrighted infringement. So in copyright law, it's the things that are most recognizable in the song that will get you into trouble, which is why copying melodies is really a big no-no, because usually that's the focal point of a song, right? And if you copy the melody, and I'm not talking a motif, we're not talking about motifs, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 notes in a row, but in terms of an entire phrase from a song, an entire line of lyric, and the exact same melody, that's where, and certainly in larger sections of a song, that's where we're actually copying a very recognizable element of another song, and that's a no-no. In some ways, though, with music copyright law, there are kind of no black and white rules. Some courts, I was reading this morning that some courts have will consider that anything to do with rhythm and harmony, so rhythm as well as harmony, are not copyrightable generally in the public domain. And it's more the melody, which is the combination, of course, of the pitch and the rhythm that is used, that is more the copyrightable and protected by copyright. So in general, copyright law will upheld when anything is deemed as original and has claimed that originality first. So in terms of lyrics, Common phrases, obviously, or short phrases cannot be copyrighted since they are not original. They've been used in, in vernacular for however long, The lyrics "Happy Birthday" are not copyrightable, right? The lyrics, I was going to say that's what she said. I'm trying to think of sayings. Let me know in the comments what sayings idioms, phrases. You can't copyright those as lyrics. Dingo stole my baby. That's the first one I could sit here and think of. But that's a common phrase, right? So you wouldn't be able to copyright that as a song lyric on its own. However, if that was combined with a specific melody and that melody had pitch and rhythm set to those lyrics, obviously that would be more copyrightable because that is the original part of that song. So that is generally the non-copyright and copyright side of things. So when is copyright infringed? This is our next question. Val says chip off the old block. That's a really good one. It's better than Dingo Stole My Baby. Slower than molasses. I haven't heard that one before, Mel. Val, sorry, Mel. I was thinking of molasses and Val at the same time. So copyright is infringed when another person does something in relation to a work in a way that is reserved to the copyright owner and without permission, right? So if you are infringing on the things that we just talked about before, where melody specifically is concerned, or the specifics of a recorded arrangement, and you don't have permission, obviously that's an infringement. It may occur in relation to a whole work or a substantial part of the work, and substantial refers to an important or distinctive part of the work. So that's why something like a motif is not going to be infringing, because it's not a substantial part of the work. And this is where people, where lawyers can argue in court whether or not something is substantial enough within a song to prohibit someone from using it. Generally, infringement turns on the quality of what is taken rather than the quantity as well. So that's a different sort of thing, saying that if it really is, something that the song really hinges on, is really one of the most identified or important parts of that song, say for instance the hook in the chorus, then that, though it might not be a large portion of music, it's a really important part of that song and very recognizable, or one of the most recognizable parts of that song, then therefore that is another reason why it might be infringing. And there are special circumstances where a person may copy your work without your permission. So this is something I really want to place some importance on. As I said at the start, we're not releasing music commercially. No one's really going to come for us if we find that something that we've borrowed or try to tweak is still too near to the original, therefore copyright infringing. No one's going to come for you. Again, in my opinion, get a lawyer's advice. But there are circumstances where you can kind of get away with copying stuff or portions of stuff in order to further your songwriting, and that those instances are for criticism, review, and news reporting, for research or private study, which is essentially what we do here at Piano Picnic. It's private study. So if you do find that you have used a bit of a melody and it's copyrighted and you're a bit scared about it, if it's for your own private study, just playing at the piano and practicing songwriting, it doesn't matter. Also for educational purposes, which is of course when I use songs, I try not to use copyright material in most of my teaching, because I used to be in license administration for music, for printed music, so I sort of know to avoid a lot of that. But at the end of the day, it does come under educational purposes. And for public administration purposes, I don't really know much about that side of things, but if you're in public administration, then don't worry about it. So, and here's the last question that I wanted to cover today that you might be thinking, which is, so when is a song considered copyright? So if you've written a song and you know that it's original, you haven't copied anyone, how do you know when is it copyrighted? When is it, where, if you hear someone else and you think they might have copied your song, has your song been copyrighted and do you have a leg to stand on? A music copyright, whether as a musical work or a sound recording, is created immediately upon creation and satisfaction of the following elements. A, it must be an original work of authorship. Okay, so it cannot be taking something someone else has done. It must be fixed in any tangible medium of expression, such as written sheet music, a MIDI file, or a digital or analog recording, right? So it has to be in a fixed asset rather than just in your head or performed in time, right? So if you wrote a song and you went and performed it to an audience, it's not necessarily copyrighted, although you could probably get those people to witness the fact that you'd had that song sung. It needs to be in a tangible physical form, and physical includes a sound recording, and those are the only two things. For example, if you wrote a song, as soon as it's written down as sheet music or recorded as a MIDI computer sound in the software, or you record it onto your phone, it's copyrighted. You don't have to send it anywhere. You don't have to log it with the copyright body of music or association. You literally don't have to do anything like that. This is according to New Zealand music copyright law. Just want to reiterate that. It may be different in the country that you're in, but as far as I can tell, if you've written a song and you wrote it down, more than a lead sheet, of course. This is not just chords and lyrics. If you want to, if you're writing it down and you want your melody to be copyrighted, you'd have to write that out in some form, whether that would be standard notation or if you have your own alternative way of writing things down. So that is, I think, in a nutshell, everything we need to really worry about when we are writing songs for our own personal development, or if we are, amateur musicians, even if you are recording songs and you do want to release them to your fan base or to, your friends and family, these rules should stand you in good stead. If you are using sampling, which is very different, if you are sampling recordings of music, which is very common in genres like hip-hop and electronic music as well, then that's a whole different ballgame, because that's to do with copyright of an actual recording rather than just copyright of the song elements, right? Of the intellectual property. Val says she thought it would be a difficult and expensive endeavor to copyright your music. No. As soon as you've recorded it or put it, yeah, exactly, it becomes copyrightable. But the only reason that would, if you wanted to approach someone and say to them, look, I think that you've copied my song, please stop, then you could show them obviously the evidence of you having already written that song. If it became if it was to go to court, then obviously things get a bit more complicated and you have to get more parties involved, and there's a whole thing I know nothing about. But technically, your music is copyrighted the minute that you make it physical in some shape or form, which is awesome. I have actually paid money in the past to associations to log a copyright with my music. I used to think, and this may have changed, in fact, the law might have changed, but about a decade ago, I wrote a solo album, and I actually sent a CD to a organization and paid them $20 or something like that, so that my CD would be recorded as in the greater world as copyrighted. I found the information somewhere and thought that was the advice to follow, so I'm not sure whether the law has changed since then, but this is the law now, so at least in New Zealand. I'd be interested to hear if it is different in other parts of the world. Awesome. So that brings me to the end of my presentation today. If you're watching this and you want to get started songwriting, then you need to check out my course. It's called The Keys to Songwriting. It's specifically for people who are either beginner pianists or amateur pianists or advanced pianists. If you want to start writing your songs and you haven't got a clue where to start, or you sort of know where to start but you don't really know how to take your ideas and shape them into a full song, you need to check out my course, The Keys to Songwriting. It's only a few months old at this point, depending on when you're watching this video, and I've had some awesome feedback about it. In fact, we are doing a live virtual songwriting camp tomorrow, and some of you guys have already submitted your songs. I've been loving going through them. I'm having so much fun listening to them all. I've got hints and little tips for all the songs that were submitted. I'm really excited to let you guys know my little take about how you could tweak some of the things in your songs to make them even better. But on the whole, I'm so impressed with everyone's songs. It's amazing, and I'm so proud that this little course that I've written has helped you guys to do that. So yeah, you can check out the course there. Mirror image always confuses me. If you want to know more, go to pianobitner.com/thatkeys. And that's all from me today. I want to thank you guys for having it out in the comments. Thanks for coming over to YouTube. It was something a little bit different. And let me know if this is convenient for you. If you're watching this live or on the replay, do you prefer this on YouTube or do you prefer it on Facebook? Please let me know, because I'm sort of trying to find a sweet spot. Have a wonderful week. Remember to play it like you mean it. And I'll see you next time. Play it like you mean it. 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 And I'll see you next time.